Business Centre, and today we are live from the pod. As we keep promising, we do this more often. But today we're with Lyndsay from ANZ. We're going to be talking all things business banking. Hence why today I'm wearing a shirt, which is a bit of a miracle. And look, Lindsay's even wearing a tie in Albany. Like seriously, dude. Like.
Thanks, mate. No, want to look nice and sharp for your clients.
Thanks for everybody, actually, all the business people. So look. As always, comments on the side. So if you've got any questions, just now's the time to ask them. Just shoot them away. We've got some questions here, which we'll get straight into. So, Lyndsay, you were an Essence boy, moved to Albany, working for the big corporate bank. Excellent. And you help businesses out with their banks.
Absolutely, mate. So yeah, I'm a small business specialist with ANZ.
Yeah.
So there's different segments of business banking within ANZ, and I'm specifically in that small business segment where I help customers with up to $1 million in business lending.
Awesome.
Having said that, we have business banking relationship managers here in Albany as well for that 1 to 15 million space. So,
okay, wow, fantastic. So you cover it all.
I do, yeah, everything up to 1 million myself.
Absolutely. So that's most of the small businesses in the region, which is great. 98% of small business. 98% of businesses in the Great Southern are small business, so that's great. And you've helped them out from the ANZ side. But today we're going to be talking. Obviously, you can really only talk for what ANZ's doing, but we're going to ask you some pretty general business banking questions, which you probably know the answer to anyway, and a lot of people don't know it. So that's great. Awesome. I'm going to fire away with the one question which I always get asked, and that is, why do I need a separate business and personal bank account if it's just me and I'm a sole trader?
Yeah, great question, mate, and come across this pretty often, as you imagine. And look, there's a few different reasons. Look, a really obvious one is from an organisation point of view, you want to keep your personal funds separate from your business funds. So that's one really key reason.
And you don't want the ATO then looking at your personal bank account if they're looking at your business bank account. So keep that nice and separate.
That's right, yeah. And look, if the business structure is like a partnership or a company or there's a trust associated, you're actually legally required to have an account that's in the name of that business structure.
Yeah.
However, look, even if you're a sole trader, there's still a good reason to have a proper business account, and that is that we can put your trading name on that account.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, if it was a personal account, it would only ever be in your individual name.
Yeah.
And then if you ever have customers, writing checks to your business name or
checks.
That's the thing. They're getting out of date now, but even with internet banking, if you when you put in the pay details, so that the name of the person you're sending the money to, if that doesn't match the account, the payment doesn't go through.
Yeah.
You really want to get your account set up properly with that trading name, so you don't have those.
And that really helps with cyber security, right? Because then you've got the names, and you can marry that up, and it all works beautifully for you. Also, as we always say, you have your business bank account, have at least a couple, so you have one of ingoings, one of outgoings. So it's really easy for you to keep track of everything that's going on.
Absolutely, mate. So look, whenever I'm helping a client with a new account, so having a little bit of a chat about how the money flows in and out of the business and what they're doing while they've got that money.
Yeah.
And quite often one account isn't going to be enough to keep the business really organised and on top of their finances. So what we really commonly do is set them up with at least one more kind of like a savings type of account really for managing tax and GST.
Yeah.
So it's really important to put aside tax as you're charging your customers, so that when you do your business activity statement or you've got to pay your tax bill, you've got that money ready to go, and it's not like a hit to the working capital of your business.
And that's important, right? That's really important for everybody. Everybody needs to know about their cash flow and be able to easily see what's going on. So separate business bank account is definitely the way to go. Now, this is the other thing we always get asked is, so how much is that going to cost me? So ANZ, you can only talk for them. Obviously, I know there's a few banks out there which charge you for extra business bank accounts. What do you guys do?
Yeah, look, we've got options here, and most of the banks when it comes to business accounts, they're typically going to have like an entry-level account that doesn't have a monthly account fee.
Yep.
But then typically it'll have limited amount of free transactions. So at ANZ, for example, we've got our Business Essentials account, so it's no monthly account fee, but only 20 free transactions per month.
Yeah.
So that can be a really great account to get started with. Like when you're setting up your business, you might be a couple of months before you actually start trading, and you don't want to be paying fees on the account while you're getting set up.
Yeah. So you say transaction fees. Is that you paying out, or that includes stuff coming in as well? It's just you coming out?
It's in and out.
In and out? Okay, cool.
And look, a transaction fee isn't necessarily particularly high, like an electronic transaction fee could be like 60 cents, for example. So, you need to do a lot of excess transactions anyway before you sort of get to the $10 per month cost of an unlimited account.
So it's nothing. Yeah, it's virtually nothing.
Yeah, and so it's really easy to change between accounts as well. So when I've explained that initially we might set them up with that Business Essentials account during that startup phase or while they're building the business. Once the business's needs change and you need unlimited transactions and you just want the peace of mind of not having to worry about how many transactions you're doing, we basically just change the account in our system to the next account up. The account number stays the same, cards, internet banking, everything stays the same. There's no interruption.
Because a lot of the sole traders around the area, they use things like Square. For their payments, so that can link straight to your account. They're getting charged from Square, obviously, for the transaction. And if they're working in a market or a food van or something like that, there are obviously lots of transactions going through. So if they're getting charged by Square, the one transaction is from them, or do you guys charge them for a transaction as well, or is it just the one when they consolidate?
What happens with your merchant terminal typically is not every single transaction is hitting the account. They'll build up in the system for a full day, and then the terminal will do like a settlement, and then it'll just be a single credit to the account. So typically maybe like one per day that you're trading.
Fantastic. So I'm working in a market. I'm just like selling all this stuff because I've got this amazing soaps or something like that which I'm selling. Hundreds and hundreds of those. End of the day, one transaction, and you get free ones with you guys up to a point, and then it could be like 60 cents.
That's right. And look, the next account up is our Business Advantage account, which is it's $10 per month with unlimited transactions.
Yeah.
So when we consider that $10, that's a lot of 60-cent transactions. Before you get up there. So while you might go over 20, you do 30, you're still going to be ahead. Anyway.
You're still going to be ahead, and then it comes up to you, the customer, of what you really want and what you feel is going to be best for your business.
Yeah, and look, as soon as you start seeing some excess transaction fees, just give us a call. We review, what account you're on and whether it's worth changing it. And it's a really simple thing we can typically do over the phone.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Hang on, you said over the phone. Is that with like you, or is that with a call centre which is somewhere else?
Either or, mate. So it's something I can only do myself for my customers.
Beautiful. Local person, local thing. Loving it. Okay, so another question which has come in, which is, what do I need to look for in a business bank account?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So I've already talked about the number of transactions and what the monthly account fee is. And they're probably two of the key features that you need to be aware of. However, you may also want to consider the interest rate or how much interest you're earning on the funds.
Yep.
So typically your transaction account generally doesn't earn any interest.
Yeah, and if it does, it's kind of pointless because it's in and out and you don't really accumulate anything anyway.
But if we've got like another account to put aside a bit of tax, for example, we'll set them up with something like our Business Online Saver that does earn a little bit of interest.
Yeah.
And then for larger deposits, we do have some other options as well. So where our customers have an opening deposit of at least 50,000, we can get them.
That'd be nice,
a lot better interest rate on on-call funds.
Of course.
And then, of course, we've got term deposits as well, which are a fixed investment, which typically get a higher interest rate.
And you've mentioned term deposits there. What's the minimum amount that somebody could put in a term deposit? Because I think that a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, don't really take advantage of a term deposit.
Yeah. And look, so to answer your question, it's $5,000.
$5,000. All right. So and me being a layman, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, because obviously I'm asking the questions for you guys. So a term deposit, I've got £5,000, which I've made in whatever I've done, and I want to just put it aside, so I'm never going to touch it, or I'm not going to touch it for, let's say, 6 months. Right?
Sure.
I then come to you guys and go, I've got £5,000, I want to stick it away. Term deposit means essentially you can't touch it for 6 months, or you can, but you've got to pay a fee to get it out and all that sort of stuff. But you get a higher rate of interest.
That's right, yeah. So you're locking the funds away for a particular term. If you do want to get early access to those funds, it's typically going to take 31 days notice and a penalty. So you always really want to consider what your plans are for that money. If you think that you might need it during that term, then generally locking it away isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And using what we call an on-call savings account where you can pull the money out whenever you want is probably a better option.
Yeah.
And look, for a small amount like 5,000, typically the business is probably going to benefit more from having that capital available to purchase stock or to pay wages.
Of course.
So unless it's sort of money that's put aside, maybe savings for deposit on a property purchase or towards buying new equipment or something like that, then by all means lock that away and get the most interest you can.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that in this world where inflation's really bad, interest rates are killing people on their mortgages and that sort of stuff, a term deposit can be really handy because it works in your favour in this time because the interest rates are higher for your savings.
Yeah, we've really seen interest rates on savings and term deposits go up in the last year. So, it was amazing how low rates got, and we're starting to see much more normal numbers now.
Yeah, and I'm seeing people who are getting 4 or 5% on their term deposit for 6 months, which is great because if it's money you're not going to touch, you may as well make that 4 or 5% off of it.
Absolutely, mate. If it's sitting there and not earning interest, then it's losing value.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Earn interest if you can.
Earn interest if you can. Excellent. Okay, what kind of facilities can banks provide to a new startup? It's going to do overdrafts, FPOS machines, online banking, all that sort of stuff.
Everything. A startup business can have everything.
Yeah.
So look, we're commonly helping them with accounts and business loans for property purchase or equipment and vehicle purchase. Some really other common products, obviously, FPOS machines. If you're renting a commercial property, it's quite common to need what's called a bank guarantee for the rental bond. So essentially, the bank is guaranteeing that will pay the landlord.
So it's like the old days where you used to get your mum and dad to be a guarantor when you
a little bit. It's kind of like the bank itself is the guarantor.
Yeah.
So we're guaranteeing our customer so that if the landlord has an issue with the rent and they need to call up that rental bond, the bank is guaranteeing that we've got it there.
Fantastic. So it really depends on what people are after. Right? So that's so the other question I get asked, and I haven't written this one down because I wanted to ask you this one.
Sure.
So we get a lot of phone calls here. I'm a new business owner and I need like $5,000 because I need to get some equipment to get it going. It's a great business idea. I might be making sausages, for example, and I need a sausage machine. Can you guys help with that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So look, anytime there's lending for a startup business, it is a little bit more involved than an existing business where we can have a look at their financials and we can see what they've been doing historically.
Yeah.
So the way we assess applications for startup lending is with a cash flow forecast and a business plan.
Excellent. With business plans, that's odd. We deal with business plans all the time as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I reckon you could help a lot of my customers to really set themselves up to start up their business.
It's important. It's imperative. So essentially, business plan from you guys. Just do some checks, and you could potentially help somebody. It's never free money. Let's be honest. There's going to be an interest rate involved, but it gets businesses going for a small amount.
Absolutely, mate. Yep. And look, there's some other factors as well. Some general concepts for startup businesses that would be beneficial for them to be aware of. So typically, while we can do completely unsecured lending for an existing business, depending on what sort of business it is, for a startup business, we are looking for a little bit of a contribution from the business owners, either like a cash contribution towards their total startup costs, or maybe like a bit of security, like in their home, for example.
So somebody wanted $5,000 for a sausage machine. I'm loving the sausage machine, and they want £5,000. If they had 2.5 of that, that would.
For a smaller amount like 5,000, look, we could consider something like a business credit card, and we could potentially get around that requirement for such a small amount. We'd have a look at it anyway. But look, if it was something like, you're purchasing another business for a couple $100,000, we're really looking for, cash or equity, so a 50% contribution.
That's ideal.
It is ideal and meets policy, and as long as we can show that it's all affordable with the business plan and the cash flow forecast and everything, then we can typically.
And that would be pretty much typical with most banks as well. 50% is going to get you a long way because you're showing that you've got some of that money there.
Absolutely, we want to see that the business owner is invested in the transaction, and the bank can't be the only ones taking the risk. With the business owner taking a little bit of risk themselves, it means that they're motivated to make it work.
Absolutely. This is common sense, right?
Yeah.
Would you lend money to your best mate down the road if he thinks he's got a good idea and isn't really invested in it? Probably not. But if there's some guy who's really invested in what he's going to do, he's got half the money, he's got a bit of nance about himself as well, you're going to help him out. So it's common sense, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Can you here we go. Here's the list of questions. What products are ANZ currently offering to people that would like to start up a new business or purchase an established one? How does that differ from other banks, or are there things businesses should be looking out for?
Yeah, look, the most common product that we have is our ANZ business loan. Yeah. And we keep it simple. We've only really got there's two types of loans. So we've got an ANZ business loan for most purposes, and then we've got lending for equipment purchase or vehicle purchase. So that ANZ business loan is a very flexible loan with a lot of different options. So you can have a variable structure or a fixed structure. We can set up offset accounts if the scenario is right. You can have like interest only periods and interest in advance. So it's a very flexible, just a single product that we can get to do whatever we need.
And that's really for materials and that sort of stuff, or a new work that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I do a lot of like so goodwill, for example, and the plant and equipment in a business purchase. Motor vehicles, we typically are using an asset finance facility, which is where the loan itself is secured against that equipment or vehicle. Okay. Whereas with a normal ANZ business loan, that the security, it could be typically unsecured, or we could use property as security.
Because that can be a bit confusing, especially for everybody out there. Is that I want to get a new car for work, which I need to do, and I need a business loan. But it isn't really a business. It isn't the business loan that you're getting. It's an asset loan. It's a different product altogether.
It is a different, So it's the two main lending products we have is the ANZ business loan and our asset finance.
And is that the same? That's the same across most banks.
I would say so, yeah. So anywhere we can use the equipment as security, we try to, because we don't want to use up equity in your home if we don't need to.
Yeah, of course.
And then that's available for your further business lending later, or if you want to renovate your home, or we want to try and keep the equity free.
Awesome. All right. What is banking or ANZ's policy on grantors assisting with security to help obtain finance?
Yeah, I love this.
Can you actually explain that question to me? Because I've read that 3 times and I don't know what it means.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about needing a little bit of a contribution for a startup. So one of the contributions could be equity in a property, for example. Yeah. And that would a lot of people would then inquire, can mum and dad provide their house as security, for example?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that's probably where that question is coming from. Yeah. To answer it, I'll explain a little bit about guarantees. There's actually a lot of different types of guarantees in business banking. Yeah. So, for example, when we lend to a company, we take guarantees from the directors, personal guarantees. Mm-hmm. And then when, say, we've got one person is a business owner, but their spouse is a co-owner of the property, and that property is security for the loan, they're technically what we call a third-party guarantor. Right, gotcha. Okay. And that's when we're really having a look to see what that guarantee looks like. Is it going to be appropriate? And look, in the case of a spousal couple, that's really normal to have that third-party guarantee. We're generally quite happy with that. But in the case of using mum and dad's property, it's very rare that we can do that in business banking. With home loans, absolutely, it's really common for mum and dad to provide a bit of security to help the kids getting their first home. But in business banking, if we're taking a guarantee from someone, first of all, they need to be receiving a benefit. And they also need to be able to afford to provide that guarantee. So a guarantee for home is pretty simple. We're not looking at the income of mum and dad, but if mum and dad were guaranteeing a business loan, we're looking at their income, making sure that they can afford the lending if they had to, if the kids defaulted. And we're also making sure that they're getting a benefit, because we don't want to make them liable for someone else's lending when they're not getting.
So really, what you're saying is, if mum and dad are going to be the guarantor on the business loan, the ideal situation is mum and dad already own their house outright, and they're kind of working full time, but so they haven't really got any bills which are coming in anyway, and that's really it, because otherwise it's going to make things really difficult.
Yeah, and look, even with that scenario, we do struggle because we're looking at mum and dad's income. So if the kids if it's a big business loan like 500,000, it's going to have considerable repayments, and the kids, they're going to have their business that's producing the income to make those repayments. Mum and dad, they need to be able to afford those repayments themselves, which can be pretty difficult. And again, there's the benefit. It's really hard to demonstrate that mum and dad are getting a benefit from providing that guarantee.
So ultimately, then, if somebody's wanting to do this, maybe have a second thought about it, because it's really difficult to do.
Look, if the need is there for a business loan,
have a chat.
Talk to us,
and
we'll figure out if there's a way to do it. And look, if it's not something that's doable now, we help put in a plan to get to where you want to be in the future. So if you don't have the cash available at the moment for the contribution, let's put a savings plan in place. Let's open another account up, put a regular deposit in there, and have that plan so that in a year's time or 2 years time, you're going to have the money to do what you want to do.
Again, it's back to common sense, right? Absolutely. Okay, do I deal with someone local, or is this outsourced to someone over east or overseas? You're local.
I'm local, and look, we're really lucky here in Albany in that we're actually really well staffed in the business banking side of things. So we've got four commercial managers. So I'm a small business manager. We've got the 2 business banking managers, and we even have a commercial home lending specialist. So we've got a home lender who is trained specifically around interpreting business financials and helping our self-employed customers with home loans, because it's typically a little bit more complicated than your typical. You're receiving PAYG income from a job. That's pretty straightforward. It's just a pay slip. Business income is a lot more complicated.
So do you just cover Albany, or do you cover the whole of the Great Southern? Or what's
So my patch is all of the Great Southern, essentially.
So all the guys in Katanning can give you a call.
Oh, absolutely, and more than Katanning. I go as far west as about Northcliffe, and as far east as almost Hopetown, and good way north.
Fantastic!
Halfway to Perth.
Fantastic. So you cover Great Southern, but it's the Eastern States version of Great Southern, which is kind of more of the wheat belt and kind of the southwest as well. That's nice easy one. All right. What support do banks provide when I obtain a business loan, or do I have to talk to a manager that I can speak to for assistance, or even worse, be on hold for hours?
Yeah, and look, it depends on what your banking looks like. So if you've got significant business lending with us, so the number there, so anything over 300,000 of business lending, you're going to have an assigned manager, a relationship manager, who's always going to be your first point of contact at the bank, and they're always going to go out of their way to look after you. For the customers with more simple, business lending, they might just have a little overdraft or a little loan, but they're not necessarily assigned a relationship manager. But we have local people still.
People in the branches,
people in the branches. And I still help my own managed customers with new accounts, and I want to build them up to the point where they become my managed customer.
Of course.
I help them grow the business and help them meet their needs, and it works both ways. We help them achieve their needs. We get the business lending, and happy days.
Fantastic. And is that the same with most of the banks around the region as well? They've got people who are around, because you bump into people all the time in your opposition, and we all bump into our opposition, right? And sometimes we're smiling, we're really nice to them, and other times we're not. But ultimately, most of the banks around and lending facilities around, they have people in the region.
Typically, it's the banks are having the same challenges with staffing that a lot of other businesses are having.
Of course, everybody is.
It's hard to get good people, and people come and go. But we are lucky at ANZ in Albany. So I've been in small business for 2.5 years now, and we've got really experienced relationship managers. With some of the other banks, I know. Sometimes they do have gaps. Like I think they're all aiming to have local people, but it is a little bit of a challenge to get the right people, especially regional as well. And
it's always the way, right? We live in the regions. We produce some of the best people, the best work ethics, and then people are lured to the big smoke and But I love our proposition for ANZ and Albany. The fact that we've got a really substantial commercial team. Essentially we can meet all of the business needs face to face. You're such a corporate guy. All right, I have one question left because nobody's written up any comments at the moment, but so I'm going to use this one as the last one. Can you give me a breakdown of current business rates, how they work? Are they different for a different risk or different types of business, i.e. retail services versus transport logistics, for example?
Yeah, another great question, mate. So the main driver behind what interest rate you're going to get, at least in the small business segment, is how much security you've got for the loan. So for us, it's all risk-based. The lower the risk for the bank, the cheaper the lending is going to be for the customer, the lower your interest rate is going to be. And we have interest rates from unsecured all the way to fully secured. So to give you a little bit of an idea, at the moment, fully secured business lending, where
this is dated right now, obviously.
At the moment, it's a very volatile environment. So 6.34% is sort of where we're at with fully secured business lending at the moment. To give you a little bit of an idea, unsecured, we're looking at sort of about 12.24%.
Big difference.
Absolutely.
But that kind of shows the risk.
Absolutely, and there's different tiers. There's actually different levels of security. There's some calculations we do in the background. And, essentially, once we have a chat, we generate like a proposal for you. So after discussing what your needs are, I'll typically do up a nice informative email with a pricing proposal and a lot of information around how to apply and what we're going to need. And then the proposed interest rate is going to be included in that information.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think that's probably enough for today. We've been babbling on here for a while, but I hope there's been some really good information for you. Lyndsay, thanks for coming in.
Oh, mate, I've loved it. I'm really excited about the collaboration between Albany Business Centre and ANZ.
Mate, you keep saying that, I'm going to start hitting you up for some funding. Or maybe a business loan. A low rate, maybe, to secure them. Anyway, thank you so much for coming in. Any questions, guys, you can give Lyndsay a call at ANZ or your provider of choice, and that's what I'd recommend, is always talk, always phone, always communicate, because even if you're having problems with payments and that sort of stuff, the best thing to do is just pick up the phone, call and explain the situation, because then you're going to be more understanding about it.
That's right.
Thanks, guys. We've got plenty more Life on the Pods coming up, and we're going to leave you with it for today. Again, Lyndsay, thank you so much. We'll see you later.
Thanks,
Hope that helps.
See you, everyone.